President Trump is dialing up the pressure on a number of countries in pursuit of better trade deals as his new August 1st deadline closes in. Two countries are facing particularly serious threats. Brazil would face tariffs as high as 50%, and Canada could face 35% on many products. Companies are trying to navigate rising prices once again. William Brangham talks to one executive who's trying to figure it out.
That's right, Amna. The president also threatened yesterday to raise even the baseline tariffs that most countries pay higher to either 15 or 20%. In a phone interview yesterday, the president also dismissed a warning from Hasbro CEO that toy prices will rise if the US continues to hike tariffs. We take a look at the impact of all of this with another key toy manufacturer. Jay Foreman is the CEO of Basic Fun, which sells toys like Tonka trucks, Care Bears, and Light Bright. Jay Foreman, thank you so much for being here. Most of your products are manufactured in China. Imports on Chinese products at one point were 145%. They are now down to, I believe it's 30%. How has that affected your operations?
Well, it's we've been affected on a number of different levels. Initially, we were affected just from the fact that at 145%, it was a de facto embargo. So we stopped producing and stopped shipping. Now that the tariffs have come down to about 30%, the flow of goods is happening. And it's just a question of where is the tariff going to be absorbed. It's not just by toy makers, it's by any importers in any industry. So typically, what you're seeing and what we're seeing and experiencing is a shared impact where we are absorbing a bit of it, the retailer's absorbing a bit of it, and some of it is being passed along to the consumer. You're not feeling it, and the consumer's not feeling it today, but most likely in the last 4 months of the year, September, October, November, for sure, there is a price to pay. Now, if it's not in higher prices in categories, it's likely in lower profits or lower sales for corporations. Nothing is free. Tariffs aren't free. They don't come at zero cost. Somebody pays the cost. We're just going to find out in the fourth quarter who is going to end up paying that costs.
I mean, given that volatility and uncertainty, have you moved any of your production elsewhere because of these?
Well, we have been counter-sourcing our products not only in China, which is our main source of production, but also in Vietnam and in Indonesia. And what we found is that the production costs in those countries are actually higher than China. So even if the tariff's a little bit lower or the same, it's not cost effective necessarily to move out of China. And of course, we do produce some of our toys in the US. We produce our Connects building sets and our Lincoln Logs in the US, but ramping up production in the US for lots of the other types of toys we make is just uh, a little bit challenging based on the availability of labor, but also the time it takes to set up new factories and potentially the additional cost that you'd have to incur to manufacture here as opposed to a foreign country. So far, we've left the majority of our production in China for now. We are looking for alternate sources.
Because that what you just mentioned is something that is part of what the president says is his motivation, which is raise tariffs on other countries so that US manufacturing is grown and returns to this country. Could you foresee a future where you do more manufacturing here in the US?
Well, the toy industry is looking to find ways to bring production back to the US. But I bet if you asked an AI chatbot, how many workers would it take to replace the amount of workers that are employed in the imports of products that we use here? It's probably like 60 or 70 million people are involved in manufacturing imported goods. We've only got 13 million people today in the manufacturing of goods. So we need another 60 million people producing everything from t-shirts and teddy bears to telephones and telescopes here in the United States. So the fact is that we don't necessarily have the workforce to produce all these goods here. So the question is, should we be producing the right type of goods here, strategic goods, important merchandise that we need to tighten up or control supply chains? I would say yes. T-shirts, teddy bears, tennis rackets, maybe not.
You mentioned that you had not yet raised prices for consumers here in the US because of these tariffs. How much longer do you think you can hold out without raising prices and keep your bottom line intact?
Well, there's no way to keep the bottom line intact. So if we're not raising prices, that means we're making less profit. What less profit means for many companies, and there are lots of layoffs happening in the toy industry and other industries, it means potentially layoffs. It might mean lower bonuses or raises, might mean less investment in infrastructure here in the United States. So if we're not raising prices, it usually means we're losing money. At some point we will have to start to pass some of the cost of these tariffs to the consumer. I know that's happening with many different companies in the toy industry as well as other industries. And eventually the price has got to get paid. The piper has to get paid. And it's either going to be in higher prices for the consumers or lower profits for companies.
All right, that is Jay Foreman, the CEO of Basic Fun, toy manufacturer. Great to talk to you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.